Chapter 1. The Scent of Suspicion. The autumn evening draped the English countryside in a golden haze, as the sleek motor car carrying Hercule Poirot wound its way toward Langley Manor. The Belgian detective, immaculate in his tailored suit, adjusted his moustache with a gloved finger, his sharp grey eyes scanning the rolling hills. An invitation to a dinner party at the estate of Lady Beatrice Langley, the celebrated perfumer, had piqued his curiosity. "Mon ami," he murmured to his companion, Captain Arthur Hastings, "there is always a fragrance of intrigue at such gatherings, is there not?" Hastings, ever the loyal friend, chuckled. "You see mystery in a dinner invitation, Poirot? It's just a social affair. Good food, fine company, and Lady Beatrice's famous perfumes, I expect." Poirot's lips twitched into a knowing smile. "The nose, Hastings. It detects more than pleasant aromas. It senses the secrets that linger beneath." The car pulled into the gravel drive of Langley Manor, a sprawling Georgian estate aglow with lamplight. Ivy clung to its stone facade, and the air carried the faint sweetness of roses from the manicured gardens. As Poirot and Hastings stepped out, a butler ushered them into a grand foyer, adorned with crystal chandeliers and portraits of stern-faced ancestors. The hum of conversation drifted from the drawing-room, where guests mingled in anticipation of the evening's highlight, the unveiling of Lady Beatrice's latest perfume, Étoile Mortelle. Lady Beatrice Langley, a statuesque woman in her 40s, greeted Poirot with a radiant smile. Her auburn hair was swept into an elegant chignon, and her emerald gown shimmered under the candlelight. "Monsieur Poirot, what an honour," she said, her voice smooth as velvet. "Your reputation precedes you. I trust you'll find tonight's gathering fragrant with possibilities." "Madam," Poirot replied, bowing slightly, "the pleasure is mine. Your creations, they are said to capture the very soul in a bottle." She laughed, a musical sound, and gestured toward the assembled guests. "Come, meet my circle. They're eager to experience Étoile Mortelle." Poirot's eyes swept the room, cataloguing each face with the precision of a jeweller examining gems. There was Sir Reginald Voss, a portly investor with a ruddy complexion, whose perfume empire rivaled Lady Beatrice's; Miss Clara Duval, a young Parisian perfumer with a sharp gaze and a secretive smile; Victor Hammond, Lady Beatrice's assistant, a nervous young man with ink-stained fingers; and Mrs. Eleanor Price, a widow whose diamond necklace gleamed as brightly as her resentment toward her hostess, a fact Poirot noted from her tight-lipped expression. Others filled the room, local gentry, a chemist, a journalist, but these four stood out, their interactions laced with undercurrents of tension. Dinner was announced, and the guests moved to a dining room where a long mahogany table gleamed with silver and crystal. Poirot, seated between Hastings and Miss Duval, observed the meticulous service. Consommé, roasted pheasant, and a delicate sorbet, each course paired with wines that rivaled the finest in Poirot's native Belgium. Conversation flowed, touching on perfumes, trade secrets, and the fierce competition in the industry. Sir Reginald boasted of his latest acquisition, a rare orchid extract, while Mrs. Price hinted at a past scandal involving Lady Beatrice's rise to fame. Poirot listened, his mind a labyrinth of connections. As dessert was cleared, Lady Beatrice rose, holding a crystal flacon that caught the candlelight like a star. "My dear friends," she began, "tonight I present Étoile Mortelle, a perfume that embodies desire, mystery, and eternity." She uncorked the flacon, and a fragrance wafted forth. Jasmine, amber, and a sharp, almost metallic note that made Poirot's nose twitch. She passed the bottle to Sir Reginald, who inhaled deeply, his eyes widening. "Exquisite," he murmured, passing it to Miss Duval. One by one, the guests sampled the scent, their reactions ranging from delight to curiosity. When the flacon reached Mrs. Price, she held it close, her face softening as she inhaled. Then, abruptly, her expression changed. Her hand flew to her throat, and a choked gasp escaped her lips. The flacon slipped from her fingers, shattering on the table, its contents spilling in a glittering pool. Mrs. Price swayed, her face pale, and collapsed onto the floor. Chaos erupted. Guests leapt to their feet, shouting for a doctor. Hastings knelt beside Mrs. Price, loosening her necklace, while Poirot remained seated, his eyes darting from face to face. Lady Beatrice, pale but composed, called for the butler to fetch medical aid. Victor Hammond hovered near the table, his hands trembling, while Miss Duval stepped back, her expression unreadable. Sir Reginald barked orders, his authority undermined by a quiver in his voice. Poirot rose, his calm demeanour a stark contrast to the panic. "Mes amis, remain calm," he said, his voice cutting through the din. He knelt beside Mrs. Price, noting her shallow breathing and the faint bluish tint to her lips. "This is no ordinary faint," he murmured to Hastings. "The perfume. It is not as innocent as it seems." A doctor summoned from a nearby village arrived swiftly. He administered smelling salts, but Mrs. Price remained unconscious, her pulse weak. "Poison," the doctor muttered, his brow furrowed. "Possibly inhaled. We must get her to a hospital at once." As Mrs. Price was carried away, Poirot's gaze lingered on the shattered flacon. The metallic note in the perfume nagged at him, a clue, perhaps, to its deadly secret. He turned to Lady Beatrice, who stood rigid, her hands clasped tightly. "Madame, this étoile mortelle, who had access to it before tonight?" "Only my trusted staff," she replied, her voice steady but her eyes betraying fear. "Victor prepared the flacon, but I oversaw every step. It was perfect, Monsieur Poirot, perfect." "Perfection, madame, is often an illusion," Poirot said softly. He glanced at the guests now huddled in anxious clusters. Suspicion hung in the air, as potent as the perfume itself. Had the poison been meant for Mrs. Price, or was she an unintended victim? And why tamper with a creation meant to captivate, not kill? Poirot addressed the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, it appears we are in the presence of a crime. I, Hercule Poirot, will uncover the truth. No one is to leave this manor until I have spoken with each of you." Murmurs of protest arose, but Poirot's authority silenced them. Hastings leaned close, whispering, "You think it's murder, Poirot?" "Attempted murder, perhaps," Poirot replied, his eyes gleaming. "But the little grey cells, they are already at work. The scent of suspicion, Hastings, it is the first clue." As the guests dispersed to await questioning, Poirot stood by the dining table, his fingers brushing the edge of the spilled perfume. The night had begun with elegance and promise, but now Langley Manor was a stage for deception, and Hercule Poirot, with his unerring instinct, was determined to unmask the villain before the scent of death claimed another. Chapter 2. The Perfumer's Secret. The morning after the fateful dinner party, Langley Manor lay under a shroud of unease. The golden light of autumn filtered through the tall windows of the drawing-room, where Hercule Poirot sat opposite Lady Beatrice Langley. The air still carried a faint trace of étoile mortelle, though the shattered flacon had been swept away. Poirot, impeccably dressed despite the early hour, adjusted his tie and fixed his hostesses with a penetrating gaze. Captain Hastings, seated nearby with a notebook, watched in quiet admiration as Poirot began his investigation. "Madame," Poirot said, his voice soft yet commanding, "we must speak of this étoile mortelle. A perfume that poisons is no mere accident. Tell me, who knew of its creation, and who might wish to tarnish your reputation?" Lady Beatrice, pale but composed, sat with her hands folded in her lap. Her emerald eyes, though shadowed by fatigue, held a spark of defiance. "Monsieur Poirot, my work is my life. Étoile mortelle was to be my triumph, a blend of rare jasmine from Grasse, amber from the Baltic, and a secret ingredient I perfected over years. Only my inner circle knew of it. Victor Hammond, my assistant, my chemist doctor, Philip Moreau, and my housekeeper, who oversees the estate's security." Poirot's moustache twitched. "And this secret ingredient, madame? It is perhaps the key to our mystery." She hesitated, her fingers tightening. "It is unconventional, a synthetic compound developed in my laboratory. I guard its formula closely, for competitors like Sir Reginald Voss would pay dearly to steal it." "Bien," Poirot murmured, jotting a mental note. "And these competitors, Sir Reginald, for instance, how far might they go to undermine you?" Lady Beatrice's lips thinned. "Reginald is ruthless. His company, Voss Fragrances, lost a major contract to me last year. He's never forgiven me. But poison? That seems extreme even for him." Poirot leaned forward, his eyes gleaming. "In matters of passion or profit, madame, nothing is too extreme. Now tell me of this mysterious visitor I heard mentioned last night, a stranger seen near the manor." Her composure faltered, a flicker of unease crossing her face. "A rumour, surely. My staff are loyal, but they gossip. I know of no such visitor." Poirot smiled faintly, unconvinced. "The little grey cells, they do not accept rumours without scrutiny. Let us speak with this Victor Hammond. His hands, they trembled last night, did they not?" Hastings, ever eager, rose to fetch Victor, while Poirot studied Lady Beatrice. Her elegance was undeniable, but beneath it lay a guarded intensity, as if she held secrets as delicate as her perfumes. The drawing-room, with its velvet drapes and polished furniture, seemed to close in, whispering of hidden truths. Victor Hammond entered, a lanky young man in his 20s with ink-stained fingers and a nervous tic in his left eye. His tweed suit was slightly rumpled, and his gaze darted between Poirot and Lady Beatrice. "You wanted to see me, sir?" he asked, his voice high with anxiety. "Oui, Monsieur Hammond," Poirot said, gesturing to a chair. "You prepared the flacon of Étoile Mortelle for last night's unveiling, n'est-ce pas? Tell me, what precautions did you take to ensure its purity?" Victor swallowed, his Adam's apple bobbing. "I followed Lady Beatrice's instructions to the letter. The flacon was filled from the master batch in her laboratory. I sealed it myself, and it never left my sight until the dinner." "Never?" Poirot's tone was mild, but his eyes were sharp as a hawk's. "And yet, a poison found its way into that flacon. How do you explain this, mon ami?" Victor's hands twisted in his lap. I can't. I swear I did nothing wrong. Perhaps someone tampered with it after I delivered it to the dining room." Poirot's fingers drummed lightly on the arm of his chair. "And this laboratory, who has access besides yourself and Lady Beatrice?" "Only Dr. Moreau," Victor said quickly, "and the housekeeper, Mrs. Grayson, has a key for cleaning. No one else." "Très intéressant," Poirot murmured. He turned to Lady Beatrice. "I must see this laboratory, madame. The scene of the crime's creation. It holds many secrets, I think." Lady Beatrice nodded, though her reluctance was palpable. "Of course, Monsieur Poirot. I'll arrange it at once." As they rose, Hastings whispered to Poirot, You think Victor's hiding something? He's jumpy as a cat." "Mon cher Hastings," Poirot replied, "nervousness is not guilt, but it is a scent worth following. The boy knows more than he says, and Lady Beatrice, her secrets are as potent as her perfumes." The laboratory, tucked in a wing of the manor, was a marvel of modern science. Glass vials and flasks lined oak shelves, their contents shimmering in the morning light. A long workbench held pipettes, burners, and a leather-bound journal, its pages filled with Lady Beatrice's elegant script. The air was heavy with the mingled scents of flowers, spices, and something sharper, chemical, almost medicinal. Poirot moved with the precision of a dancer, examining the workbench. His gloved fingers paused over a small vial, its label smudged. "Qu'est-ce que c'est?" he murmured, holding it to the light. The liquid inside was colourless, unlike the amber hue of Étoile Mortelle. "This is not part of the perfume, I think." Lady Beatrice frowned. "That's just a solvent for cleaning equipment, nothing significant." "Rien n'est insignifiant," Poirot said softly. "Nothing is insignificant in a case of poison." He pocketed the vial, ignoring her protest, and turned to the journal. Flipping through its pages, he noted formulas, dates, and cryptic abbreviations. One entry, dated a week prior, read, "EM finalized. Beware the shadow." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "This shadow, madame, what does it mean?" Lady Beatrice hesitated, then sighed. "A figure of speech. I was working late, feeling watched. It's nothing." Poirot closed the journal, his expression unreadable. "We shall see, madame. We shall see." As they left the laboratory, Poirot's mind churned. The vial, the journal, Victor's nerves, Lady Beatrice's evasions, each was a thread in the tapestry of the crime. And then there was the mysterious visitor, a phantom no one claimed to know. Had they slipped into the laboratory tampering with the perfume? Or was the poison source closer, within the manor's walls? Back in the drawing room, Poirot addressed Hastings. "We have suspects, mon ami. Lady Beatrice, guarding her secrets, Victor, trembling with fear, Sir Reginald, burning with rivalry, and Miss Duval, whose smile hides more than it reveals. But the motive, the method, these we must uncover." Hastings nodded, scribbling in his notebook. "And Mrs. Price? Is she the intended victim, or a mistake?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "That, Hastings, is the heart of the mystery. The perfume was meant to enchant, not to kill. Yet kill it nearly did. The little grey cells, they are at work, and soon they will sniff out the truth." As the manor stirred with the day's activities, Poirot stood by a window, gazing at the gardens. The scent of suspicion had deepened, and the perfumer's secret was only the beginning. Chapter 3. Shadows in the Laboratory. The late morning sun cast long shadows through the arched windows of Langley Manor's west wing, where Hercule Poirot stood poised at the threshold of Lady Beatrice Langley's private laboratory. The air was thick with the ghosts of 100 fragrances: jasmine, sandalwood, and that sharp chemical undertone that had lingered in Poirot's mind since the previous night's calamity. Captain Hastings, ever at his side, shifted uneasily, his honest face reflecting the tension that had settled over the estate like a fog. "Mon ami," Poirot said, his voice low but resonant, "this laboratory is the heart of our mystery. Here the poison was born, and here we shall find its cradle." His gloved hand rested lightly on the door, which Lady Beatrice had reluctantly unlocked moments before. She stood behind them, her emerald eyes watchful, while Victor Hammond, her assistant, hovered nearby, his nervous tic more pronounced under Poirot's scrutiny. The laboratory was a study in contrasts. gleaming glassware sat alongside ancient oak shelves, and modern scientific instruments shared space with bundles of dried herbs. A long workbench dominated the room, cluttered with pipettes, vials, and a brass scale that gleamed faintly. Poirot's sharp eyes roamed the space, cataloguing every detail with the precision of a watchmaker. "C'est magnifique," he murmured, "but also très dangereux. A place of creation, yes, but also of destruction." Lady Beatrice bristled. "Monsieur Poirot, my laboratory is a sanctuary of art, not a den of villainy. Every bottle, every formula is under my control." "Control, madame," Poirot replied, his moustache twitching, "is an illusion when poison finds its way into your masterpiece." He stepped toward the workbench, his polished shoes silent on the stone floor. His fingers brushed a leather-bound journal, its pages filled with Lady Beatrice's elegant script. He had glimpsed it yesterday, but now he intended to examine it thoroughly. As he opened the journal, a small slip of paper fluttered to the floor. Poirot bent gracefully to retrieve it, his movements deliberate. The paper was crumpled, its edges singed, and bore a single line in a hurried scrawl. "The star falls at midnight. Beware the alchemist." Poirot's eyes narrowed, and he held the note to the light, noting the faint scent of charcoal clinging to it. "Qu'est-ce que c'est?" he asked, turning to Lady Beatrice. "This note, it is not part of your formulas, I think." Her face paled, but she recovered quickly. "A scrap, nothing more. Perhaps a note from Victor, organizing supplies." Victor, caught off guard, stammered, No, my lady, I didn't write that. I've never seen it before." Poirot's gaze shifted to the young man, whose hands trembled as he adjusted his spectacles. "Monsieur Hammond, your nerves, they betray you. If not you, then who left this cryptic message? And why speak of an alchemist? I swear I don't know." Victor's voice cracked, and he glanced at Lady Beatrice as if seeking rescue. She remained silent, her lips pressed into a thin line. Hastings, ever practical, interjected, "Poirot, could it be a prank? Or perhaps a warning unrelated to the poisoning?" "Non, Hastings," Poirot said, tucking the note into his pocket. "In a case of poison, every word is a clue, every shadow a suspect. This alchemist, it suggests one who transforms, who manipulates. We must look closer." Poirot moved to a rack of vials, his attention drawn to a small bottle with a smudged label, similar to the one he had pocketed the previous day. He uncorked it, sniffing cautiously. The odor was sharp, almost medicinal, unlike the floral notes of Étoile Mortelle. "This," he said, holding it up, "is not a solvent as you claimed, madame. It is something else, something dangerous, perhaps." Lady Beatrice's composure wavered. "It's a byproduct of my experiments, nothing more. Harmless in small quantities." "Harmless," Poirot repeated, his tone laced with skepticism. "Yet Mrs. Price lies in a hospital, her life hanging by a thread. We shall have this analyzed, we?" He sealed the vial and handed it to Hastings, who tucked it into his coat with a nod. Poirot's exploration continued, his fingers tracing the edges of a locked drawer beneath the workbench. "And this, madame, what secrets does it guard?" Lady Beatrice hesitated, then produced a small key from her pocket. "It contains my private formulas," she said, unlocking the drawer. Inside were several notebooks, a bundle of letters, and a tiny glass vial, its contents a pale green. Poirot lifted the vial, noting its weight. "This is not Étoile Mortelle," he observed. "What is it?" "A prototype," she said quickly. "An early version of the perfume, abandoned for its instability." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Instability, madame, is a word that interests me greatly. We shall see what this prototype reveals under scrutiny." As he spoke, a faint noise, a soft creak, came from the far corner of the laboratory. Poirot's head snapped toward the sound, his senses alert. A heavy curtain hung there, concealing a storage alcove. With a swift motion, he crossed the room and drew the curtain aside, revealing only shelves of bottles and a faint draught from a cracked window. Yet the air felt charged, as if someone had been watching. "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured, his fingers brushing the window frame. A smudge of dirt marred the sill, suggesting recent disturbance. "Someone has been here, n'est-ce pas? Someone who does not wish to be seen." Lady Beatrice frowned. "The staff clean regularly. It's nothing unusual." "Perhaps," Poirot said, unconvinced. He turned to Victor. "Monsieur Hammond, you work here daily. Have you seen anyone unfamiliar in this laboratory?" Victor shook his head vehemently. "No, sir. Only Dr. Moreau and Mrs. Grayson, as I said. I'd notice if someone else came in." Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "The eyes, they see what they are, permitted to see. But the little grey cells, they see more." As they left the laboratory, Poirot's mind churned with possibilities. The cryptic note, the mysterious file, the smudged window, all were pieces of a puzzle that pointed to sabotage. Was Lady Beatrice hiding a formula that invited envy or vengeance? Was Victor's nervousness a sign of guilt or fear? And who was this alchemist lurking in the shadows of the manor? Outside, the autumn wind carried the scent of fallen leaves, a stark contrast to the laboratory's chemical haze. Hastings, clutching the vial, whispered, "Poirot, do you think the poison was made here, by Lady Beatrice herself?" "Mon cher Hastings," Poirot replied, his eyes distant, "Lady Beatrice is a creator, but creation and destruction are two sides of the same coin. Someone in this manner has turned her art into a weapon. The question is, who and why?" As they returned to the drawing-room to plan their next interviews, Poirot's thoughts lingered on the laboratory's shadows. The scent of suspicion had grown stronger, and the trail of the poison was leading him deeper into a labyrinth of deceit. Chapter 4. The Guest List Unraveled. The afternoon sun cast a soft glow through the tall windows of Langley Manor's library, where Hercule Poirot had established his temporary headquarters. The room, lined with leather-bound volumes and scented with the faint musk of old paper, provided a fitting stage for his interrogations. Captain Hastings sat at a mahogany desk, his notebook open, ready to record the nuances of each conversation. Poirot, immaculate in his pinstriped suit, paced slowly, his polished shoes clicking on the parquet floor. "Mon ami," he said to Hastings, "the guest list from last night's dinner. It is a tapestry of motives, woven with envy, greed, and perhaps amour. We shall unravel it, thread by thread." Hastings nodded, flipping through his notes. "There were 12 guests, not counting you and me. Lady Beatrice, Victor Hammond, Sir Reginald Voss, Miss Clara Duval, Mrs. Eleanor Price, who's still in hospital, and a mix of local gentry, a chemist, and a journalist. Where do we start?" "With those closest to the poison," Poirot replied, his eyes gleaming. "The little grey cells, they whisper of connections, personal, professional, and perilous. Let us begin with Sir Reginald Voss." The butler ushered in Sir Reginald, a portly man with a florid complexion and a moustache that rivaled Poirot's in grandeur, though it lacked the Belgian's precision. He settled heavily into an armchair, his gold watch chain glinting. "Monsieur Poirot," he said, his voice booming, "this is a ghastly business. Poison in a perfume? It's an outrage to our industry." "Oui, Monsieur Voss," Poirot said, his tone mild but probing. "And an outrage, perhaps, to you personally?" Lady Beatrice's étoile mortelle threatens your own empire, does it not? Sir Arth Reginald's eyes narrowed. Competition is the lifeblood of business, Poirot. I've no need to resort to sabotage. My company, Voss Fragrances, thrives on innovation. Beatrice's loss last year was fair play. She outbid me for that orchid extract. I bear no grudge. Poirot's moustache twitched. No grudge, you say? Yet last night, your praise for Étoile Mortelle was effusive. Almost too much so, n'est-ce pas? Sir Reginald flushed. I know quality when I smell it. Besides, I was in London all week meeting investors. I only returned for the dinner. Check my travel records if you doubt me. Bien, Poirot said, making a mental note. And this rivalry with Lady Beatrice, has it ever turned personal? Sir Reginald hesitated, his fingers drumming on the armrest. We were close once. Years ago, before her star rose. But that's ancient history. I've no reason to harm her, or anyone. Poirot dismissed him with a nod, turning to Hastings. A man of bluster, but his eyes betray unease. We shall verify his alibi, Hastings. Now, let us see Mademoiselle Clara Duval. Miss Duval entered, her movements graceful as a dancer's. Her dark hair was pinned elegantly, and her sharp grey eyes met Poirot's with a mixture of curiosity and caution. She wore a simple but chic dress, a nod to her Parisian roots. Monsieur Poirot, she said, her accent light but unmistakable, I am at your service. This poisoning, it is shocking, no? Shocking, mademoiselle, and deliberate, Poirot replied, gesturing to a chair. You are a perfumer, like Lady Beatrice. Tell me, what brings you to her table? Clara smiled, a guarded curve of her lips. I admire her work. Étoile Mortelle intrigued me. I wished to see if the rumours of its brilliance were true. I have my own small atelier in Paris, but I am no rival to her. Poirot leaned forward, his voice soft. And yet, rivalry in your industry is fierce, oui? You were seen speaking with Victor Hammond before dinner. In hushed tones, what did you discuss? Her smile faltered, but she recovered quickly. Perfume formulas, nothing more. Victor is ambitious. He seeks advice on his own creations. Ambitious, Poirot echoed, his eyes fixed on her. And perhaps resentful? To work in the shadow of Lady Beatrice, it must chafe, for a young man like Victor. Clara shrugged delicately. You must ask him, monsieur. I only know he is devoted to her. Poirot noted her evasiveness, but let it pass for now. And Mrs. Price, mademoiselle? Did you know her well? Hardly, Clara said, her tone cool. She seemed bitter. I heard her muttering about Beatrice's success, something about a debt unpaid, but I paid it no mind. After Clara's departure, Poirot turned to Hastings. Mademoiselle Duval is a puzzle, Hastings. Her charm conceals much, like a perfume masking a bitter note. Now let us speak with the chemist, Doctor. Philip Moreau. Dr. Moreau, a wiry man with spectacles and a precise manner, entered with an air of quiet confidence. His hands were stained faintly with chemicals, a testament to his trade. Monsieur Poirot, he said, I'm a man of science, not scandal. I create compounds for Lady Beatrice, nothing more. Oui, docteur, Poirot said, and your compounds, they are the soul of Étoile Mortelle. Tell me, could one such compound be altered, say, to become a poison? Moreau's eyes widened briefly. Theoretically, yes. Certain synthetics, if mishandled, could be toxic. But I assure you, my work is meticulous. The formula for Étoile Mortelle was perfect when I delivered it to Victor. Perfect, Poirot mused, yet perfection was poisoned. Who had access to your laboratory, besides yourself and Victor? Only Lady Beatrice, Moreau said firmly, and occasionally Mrs. Grayson for cleaning. The laboratory is locked otherwise. Poirot's fingers tapped his chin. And this mysterious visitor, Whispered of among the staff. Did you see such a person?" Moreau shook his head. "Gossip, nothing more. My focus is on my work, not manor rumours." As Moreau left, Poirot turned to Hastings, his expression thoughtful. "Each guest, Hastings, is a thread in our tapestry. Sir Reginald's rivalry, Clara's secrecy, Moreau's precision, all point to motives. And Mrs. Price, poor madame, her bitterness may have made her a target, or a scapegoat." Hastings frowned, glancing at his notes. What about this unpaid debt Clara mentioned? Could it be connected? "Précisément," Poirot said, his eyes gleaming. "A debt, a rivalry, a secret conversation, these are the sense of motive. But we need more, Hastings. We must learn of Mrs. Price's past with Lady Beatrice, and we must find this alchemist from the note in the laboratory." As the library clock chimed, Poirot stood, his posture resolute. The guest list was unravelling, revealing strands of jealousy, ambition, and betrayal. The poison in Étoile Mortelle was no accident, and Poirot's little grey cells were already weaving the clues into a pattern. The manor's elegance hid a darker truth, and he was determined to uncover it before another fell to the deadly scent. Chapter 5. A whiff of betrayal. The late afternoon light filtered through the heavy drapes of Langley Manor's drawing-room, casting a muted glow over the assembled guests. Hercule Poirot stood near the fireplace, his compact figure radiating quiet authority. The atmosphere was taut, the memory of Mrs. Eleanor Price's collapse still fresh, her fate uncertain as she lay in a hospital bed. Captain Hastings, seated with his ever-present notebook, watched Poirot closely, sensing the detective's mind was weaving a net from the threads of suspicion gathered thus far. "Mes amis," Poirot began, addressing the restless group, "the poison in Étoile Mortelle was no accident. It was a deliberate act, and I, Hercule Poirot, will uncover its architect. But we must remain vigilant, for danger may yet linger." His words hung in the air, met with uneasy glances. Sir Reginald Voss mopped his brow with a handkerchief. Miss Clara Duval's sharp eyes darted to the door, and Victor Hammond fidgeted, his ink-stained fingers twisting a pen. Lady Beatrice Langley, regal despite the strain, stood by the window, her gaze distant. The other guests, local gentry, Dr. Philip Moreau, and a journalist named Mr. Lyle, murmured among themselves, their trust in the manor's safety shaken. As Poirot prepared to resume his interviews, a piercing scream shattered the tension. It came from the hallway, followed by the thud of a body hitting the floor. Hastings leapt to his feet, and Poirot, with surprising agility, led the charge to the source. There, sprawled on the polished oak floor, was Mrs. Grayson, the housekeeper, clutching her throat. A crumpled envelope lay beside her, its wax seal broken, and a faint, familiar scent, jasmine, amber, and that metallic tang, hung in the air. "Mon Dieu," Poirot muttered, kneeling beside her. Mrs. Grayson's eyes fluttered, her breathing laboured but steady. "Quickly, Hastings, summon the doctor again. She lives, but we must act swiftly." As Hastings ran to fetch help, Poirot examined the envelope. It bore no address, only a single word in elegant script, "Étoile." He opened it cautiously, revealing a folded letter dusted with a fine powder. The scent was unmistakable, a variant of Étoile Mortelle. "Another attempt," Poirot said softly, his eyes scanning the guests who had gathered, their faces a mix of shock and fear. "The poisoner grows bold." Lady Beatrice, her composure fraying, stepped forward. "Monsieur Poirot, this is madness. Mrs. Grayson is my trusted housekeeper. Why would anyone target her?" "Madam," Poirot replied, his voice calm but steely, The why is what we seek, but first, the how. He turned to Victor. Monsieur Hammond, this letter. Where did it come from? Victor paled, his tic more pronounced. I don't know, sir. I saw Mrs. Grayson with it just before lunch. She said it was delivered this morning, but I didn't see by whom. Poirot's gaze shifted to the envelope's wax seal, embossed with a delicate fleur-de-lis. This seal, he said, holding it up, is not English. It suggests a connection to France. Perhaps Paris, n'est-ce pas, Mademoiselle Duval? Clara Duval, standing at the edge of the group, stiffened. You suspect me, monsieur? I am Parisian, yes, but I know nothing of this letter. Yet you are a perfumer, Poirot said, his tone deceptively mild. And this scent, it is too close to Étoile Mortelle to be coincidence. Tell me, mademoiselle, do you have ties to a Parisian atelier that might supply such a seal? Clara's smile was tight. My atelier uses no such seal, but many in Paris do. The fleur-de-lis is common. Enough. Common, perhaps, Poirot said, pocketing the envelope, but not without meaning. We shall investigate further. The doctor arrived, confirming Mrs. Grayson had inhaled a milder dose of the same toxin that felled Mrs. Price. She was whisked to the hospital, leaving the manor in a state of near panic. Poirot, undeterred, gathered the guests in the drawing-room, determined to prevent further chaos. No one leaves this room, he declared, until I have examined this new clue. In a quiet corner, Poirot conferred with Hastings. This letter, Hastings, it is a bold move. The poisoner strikes again, but why Mrs. Grayson? Is she a target, or a warning to another? Hastings frowned, glancing at his notes. She has access to the laboratory, Poirot. Perhaps she saw something, or someone. Précisément, Poirot said, his eyes gleaming. And this Parisian connection, it points to a larger scheme. The perfume industry, it is a world of secrets, of stolen formulas and betrayed trusts. We must learn more of Mademoiselle Duval's atelier and Sir Reginald's dealings in France. Poirot turned his attention to the journalist, Mr. Lyle, a wiry man with a sharp nose and a penchant for eavesdropping. Monsieur Lyle, you write for the London Gazette. Have you heard whispers of intrigue in the perfume trade, perhaps involving Lady Beatrice or her rivals? Lyle adjusted his spectacles, eager to impress. There's always talk, Monsieur Poirot. Word is, Lady Beatrice's Étoile Mortelle was set to dominate the European market. Some say a Parisian syndicate was furious. She'd outmaneuvered them for a rare ingredient. And Sir Reginald's been cozying up to French investors, trying to claw back his edge. Poirot's moustache twitched. A syndicate, you say? And this ingredient, what is it? No one knows, Lyle admitted. It's her secret weapon. But the gossip points to something exotic, sourced from abroad. Poirot filed this away, his mind racing. The fleur-de-lis seal, the Parisian connection, and the mysterious ingredient all suggested a conspiracy beyond the manor's walls. He approached Lady Beatrice, who stood apart, her hands clasped tightly. Madam, this secret ingredient of Étoile Mortelle, it comes from Paris, oui? And perhaps it has enemies there? Her eyes flickered with unease. I source many ingredients from France, Monsieur Poirot, but I assure you, my suppliers are reputable. I've no dealings with syndicates. Yet someone has dealt in poison, Poirot said softly. And this letter, with its Parisian seal, suggests they are closer than you think. As evening fell, Poirot instructed the butler to secure the manor's entrances, fearing further attacks. He sat by the fire, the envelope in his hand, it sent a haunting echo of the crime. The second poisoning had shifted the investigation, pointing to a calculated mind unafraid to strike again. Was Clara Duval's Parisian background more than coincidence? Did Sir Reginald's business dealings hide a darker motive? And what of Victor, whose nervous demeanour grew more suspicious with each incident? "Mon cher Hastings," Poirot said, his voice low, "the scent of betrayal is strong. This poisoner weaves a web across borders, and we must follow its strands to Paris and to the truth." The fire crackled, casting shadows on the walls. As Poirot's little grey cells worked tirelessly, piecing together the fragments of a deadly perfume. Chapter 6. The Alchemist's Code. The evening shadows lengthened across Langley Manor's library, where Hercule Poirot sat at a polished desk. The cryptic note from the laboratory spread before him. Its singed edges and hurried scrawl, "The star falls at midnight. Beware the alchemist," seemed to pulse with hidden meaning. Captain Hastings, perched on a nearby armchair, watched Poirot with a mix of awe and impatience, his notebook filled with the day's revelations. The second poisoning, that of Mrs. Grayson, had heightened the urgency, and Poirot's little grey cells were in full pursuit of the truth. "Mon ami," Poirot said, his voice a low murmur, "this note is no mere scrap. It is a cipher, a whisper from the poisoner's mind. But to decode it, we must understand its language and its chemistry." Hastings frowned, glancing at the note. "Chemistry, Poirot? You think this alchemist refers to someone like Dr. Moreau, the chemist, or perhaps Lady Beatrice herself?" Poirot's moustache twitched, a faint smile playing on his lips. "The term alchemist, Hastings, it evokes transformation, lead to gold, perfume to poison, but it is also a mask hiding the true identity of our culprit. We must consult an expert to unravel this thread." Poirot had already sent a telegram to an old acquaintance doctor. Evelyn Carter, a brilliant chemist based in London, known for her work on rare toxins. She arrived at the manor just as dusk settled, a wiry woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanour. Her tweed suit and sensible shoes contrasted with the manor's opulence, but her presence commanded respect. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, shaking his hand, "your telegram was intriguing. A poisoned perfume? Most unusual." "Oui, Dr. Carter," Poirot replied, leading her to the library. "We have 2 victims, a mysterious note, and a perfume that kills. I need your expertise to identify the toxin, and perhaps the mind behind it." Poirot handed her the vial he had taken from the laboratory, its colourless contents glinting faintly. "This was found among Lady Beatrice's supplies, mislabelled as a solvent. I suspect it is more sinister." Dr. Carter examined the vial, her brow furrowing. "I'll need to run tests, but the metallic scent you described suggests a volatile compound, possibly a cyanogenic glycoside or a synthetic alkaloid. Both could be inhaled, causing symptoms, like those of Mrs. Price and Mrs. Grayson." She paused, glancing at the note Poirot had placed on the desk. "And this alchemist business, what's that about?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "That, madame, is what we must decipher. The note mentions a star falling at midnight and warns of an alchemist. It was found in Lady Beatrice's laboratory, where Étoile Mortelle was crafted." Dr. Carter raised an eyebrow. "Étoile, French for star. A reference to the perfume, perhaps? And midnight could indicate a time of action, or a deadline." "Précisément," Poirot said, his fingers steepled. "But the alchemist, this is the key. Let us examine the note's code more closely." He spread the note under a lamp, its singed edges stark against the white paper. The handwriting was erratic, unlike Lady Beatrice's elegant script or Victor's precise notes. Poirot traced the letters with a gloved finger, murmuring, "The star falls at midnight. a metaphor perhaps for the unveiling of Étoile Mortelle at the dinner. But why beware, and why alchemist? Hastings, eager to contribute, ventured, could it be a warning to Lady Beatrice? Someone trying to protect her from the poisoner? Or, Poirot countered, a taunt from the poisoner themselves, hidden in plain sight. Let us consider the word alchemist. In perfumery, it suggests one who blends, who transforms raw materials into art. Dr. Moreau, Victor, even Lady Beatrice could fit this role. But the singed edges, they suggest urgency, destruction, a clue left in haste. Dr. Carter, meanwhile, had opened her portable chemistry kit, a compact case of vials and instruments. She carefully extracted a sample from the suspicious vial, mixing it with reagents. This will take time to analyze fully, she said, but preliminary tests suggest a synthetic compound, possibly derived from a plant toxin like amygdalin. It's rare in perfumery, but could be masked by jasmine or amber notes. Poirot nodded, his mind racing. And such a toxin, could it be synthesized in a laboratory like Lady Beatrice's? Easily, Dr. Carter replied. With the right equipment and knowledge, anyone with access could have done it. But it requires precision. A mistake could be deadly to the creator as well. Très intéressant, Poirot murmured. He turned back to the note, his eyes narrowing. Let us attempt a simple cipher. The letters, they may hold a hidden message. He scribbled on a sheet of paper, rearranging the words. The star falls at midnight. Beware the alchemist. Counting the letters, he noticed the phrase contained exactly 26 characters, matching the alphabet. Could it be an anagram? After several minutes of rearrangement, Poirot paused, his pen hovering. Mon Dieu, he whispered. Rearrange the letters and we find the alchemist beware. It falls at midnight star. Not a perfect sentence, but it suggests the alchemist is the one to fear, and the star, étoile, is central. Hastings leaned forward. So the note is a warning about the alchemist, not from them. Perhaps, Poirot said, or a clever misdirection. We must learn who had access to the laboratory and the knowledge to create such a poison. Dr. Carter looked up from her tests. I'll need a proper lab to confirm, but this compound is no accident. It's designed to volatilize when inhaled, perfect for a perfume. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. Poirot's gaze drifted to the window, where the manor's gardens lay shrouded in twilight. Then our alchemist is among us, someone with skill, access, and motive. Lady Beatrice, Victor, Dr. Moreau, even Mademoiselle Duval with her Parisian ties, they all know the art of perfume. But who knows the art of poison? As Dr. Carter packed her kit, promising to send results by morning, Poirot turned to Hastings. We must return to the laboratory, Hastings. The note was left there for a reason. And this midnight, it may yet hold significance. Was it the time of the poisoning, or a clue to another act? The library grew quiet, save for the crackle of the fire. Poirot folded the note, its words etched in his mind. The alchemist's code was beginning to yield its secrets, but each answer raised new questions. Was the poisoner taunting them, or had the note been a desperate warning, overlooked until it was too late? And why target Mrs. Grayson, a housekeeper with no apparent connection to the perfume's creation? Mon cher Hastings, Poirot said, his voice resolute, the scent of this mystery grows sharper. The alchemist is close, and their code will lead us to them, if we can decipher it in time. As night fell over Langley Manor, Poirot's little grey cells churned, piecing together the fragments of a deadly puzzle, where perfume and poison were one and the same. Chapter 7. Echoes of the Past. The morning mist clung to the gardens of Langley Manor, softening the edges of the world outside, but within the library, Hercule Poirot's focus was razor-sharp. The fire crackled, casting flickering shadows on the bookshelves as he sat at the mahogany desk. The cryptic note, "The star falls at midnight, beware the alchemist," tucked safely in his pocket. Captain Hastings, ever the faithful chronicler, sorted through his notes, his brow furrowed. The second poisoning of Mrs. Grayson had deepened the mystery, and Poirot's little grey cells were now chasing a thread from the past that might unravel the present. "Mon ami," Poirot said, his voice a quiet command, "the poisonings, they are not merely acts of malice. They are rooted in history, a history we must uncover. Lady Beatrice's success, it has made enemies, and enemies do not forget." Hastings looked up, puzzled. "You think this is about something from years ago? Not just the perfume or the rivalry with Sir Reginald?" "Précisément," Poirot replied, his eyes gleaming. "The scent of betrayal lingers long. We must speak with those who know Lady Beatrice's past, her triumphs and her scandals." Poirot had requested a private meeting with Mrs. Margaret Lisle, the journalist's wife, who had been a guest at the dinner and was known for her sharp memory of society gossip. She entered the library, a petite woman in her 50s with keen blue eyes and a penchant for elaborate hats. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, settling into a chair, "this is a dreadful affair. Poor Mrs. Price and Mrs. Grayson. I can scarcely believe it." "Madame Lisle," Poirot said, his tone courteous but probing, "you have lived in this county many years, oui? You know the history of Lady Beatrice Langley. Tell me, what whispers have you heard of her rise to fame?" Mrs. Lisle's eyes sparkled with the thrill of sharing secrets. "Oh, Beatrice was always a force, brilliant, ambitious, but not without controversy. About 10 years ago, there was a scandal involving her first major perfume, Lune d'Argent. It was a sensation, but rumours swirled that she stole the formula from a colleague, a man named Julian Carver." Poirot's moustache twitched. "Julian Carver! This name, it is new to our investigation. Who was he?" Mrs. Lisle leaned forward, her voice dropping. "A talented perfumer, once her partner, both in business and, some say, in love. They worked together in Paris, but when Lune d'Argent launched, Beatrice took all the credit. Julian vanished from the industry, disgraced. Some said he swore revenge, though no one's seen him in years." "Très intéressant," Poirot murmured, his fingers steepled. "And this scandal, did it involve others, perhaps Mrs. Price?" Mrs. Lisle nodded. Eleanor Price was Julian's cousin. She invested heavily in their joint venture, only to lose everything when Beatrice's star rose. Eleanor never forgave her, always muttering about a debt unpaid. I heard her at the dinner, you know, saying Beatrice owed her more than money. Poirot's eyes narrowed. "A debt of honour, perhaps. And this Julian Carver, where might he be now?" "No one knows," Mrs. Lisle said, shrugging. "Some say he returned to France. Others sure that he's living quietly in England, nursing his grudge. But he's a ghost, Monsieur Poirot." As Mrs. Lisle left, Poirot turned to Hastings. "A ghost from the past, Hastings. But ghosts leave traces. This Julian Carver, he is our alchemist, perhaps, or the shadow behind the poisoner." Hastings scribbled furiously. "You think Carver's back, poisoning people to ruin Beatrice? But why target Mrs. Grayson?" "Mon cher, Mrs. Grayson may have seen something or someone. Her role as housekeeper gave her access to every corner of the manor, including the laboratory. We must learn more of this Carver." Poirot summoned Lady Beatrice who entered with a regal air, though her eyes betrayed fatigue. "Madam," Poirot said, "we must speak of Julian Carver. Your former partner, oui? Why did you not mention him?" Lady Beatrice's face tightened, a flicker of pain crossing her features. "Julian is ancient history, Monsieur Poirot. We parted ways years ago. He lacked the vision to succeed, and I moved on." "Moved on," Poirot echoed, his tone sharp. "But at what cost?" "Mrs. Lyle speaks of a stolen formula, a disgraced man, and a cousin, Mrs. Price, who lost her fortune. These are not small matters, madame." Lady Beatrice's hands clenched. "The formula was mine. Julian contributed, yes, but I perfected Lune d'Argent. He couldn't handle my success, so he left. As for Eleanor, she chose to invest and lost. I owe her nothing." Poirot's gaze was unrelenting. "And yet she was poisoned, and a note speaks of an alchemist. Could Julian Carver be this shadow, seeking revenge?" "I don't know," Lady Beatrice said, her voice trembling. "I haven't seen him in a decade. If he's here, he's a stranger to me." Poirot dismissed her, his mind racing. He turned to Hastings. "We must find this Carver, or evidence of his presence. The Parisian seal on Mrs. Grayson's letter, the laboratory note. These suggest a mind with knowledge of perfumery and a grudge from the past." To pursue this lead, Poirot questioned Victor Hammond again, hoping the nervous assistant might know more. Victor entered, his tic more pronounced, his eyes darting to the door. "Monsieur Hammond," Poirot said, "you worked closely with Lady Beatrice. Did she ever speak of Julian Carver?" Victor hesitated, wiping his hands on his trousers. "Only once, sir, when I started. She said he was a brilliant chemist, but unstable. She warned me never to mention him." "Unstable," Poirot repeated. "And have you seen anyone unfamiliar near the laboratory? Someone who might fit his description?" Victor shook his head, but his hesitation lingered. "No, sir. Just the usual staff. But there was a delivery last week from Paris. A crate of essences. I didn't open it. Lady Beatrice handled it herself." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "A crate from Paris, you say? And where is it now?" "In the storage room, near the laboratory," Victor said. "It's still sealed, I think." Poirot rose, his posture resolute. "We shall examine this crate, Hastings. It may hold more than essences." The storage room, a cramped space off the laboratory, was filled with boxes and bottles. Poirot found the crate, its Parisian postmark and fleur-de-lis seal matching the poisoned letter. With care, he pried it open, revealing vials of jasmine and amber. But tucked beneath was a small notebook, its pages filled with chemical formulas and a signature, J. Carver. One entry detailed a synthetic toxin, eerily similar to Dr. Carter's findings. "Mon Dieu," Poirot whispered, "the echo of the past grows louder. Julian Carver, or someone using his name, is here." As the manor settled into uneasy silence, Poirot's little grey cells churned. The scandal of Lune d'Argent, the grudge of a disgraced perfumer, and the poison's deadly precision were converging. The alchemist was no longer a ghost, but a tangible threat. And Poirot was determined to unmask them before the next star fell. Chapter 8. The Mask of Charm. The grand ballroom of Langley Manor glittered under the light of a dozen chandeliers, their crystals refracting a kaleidoscope of colours across the polished marble floor. The charity gala, hosted by Lady Beatrice Langley to benefit a local orphanage, was a defiant gesture against the shadow of poison that had fallen over her estate. Guests in evening gowns and tuxedos mingled, their laughter a fragile veneer over the tension that lingered from the recent attacks on Mrs. Price and Mrs. Grayson. Hercule Poirot, resplendent in a black tailcoat, stood near a gilded pillar, his sharp grey eyes scanning the crowd. Captain Hastings at his side adjusted his tie, looking slightly out of place among the county's elite. "Mon ami," Poirot murmured, his voice barely audible over the strains of a string quartet. "A gala is a stage, and our suspects, they perform. Observe their masks, Hastings, for beneath them lies the truth." Hastings nodded, his gaze following Poirot's to the key figures. Lady Beatrice, radiant in a sapphire gown, greeting guests with practised grace. Sir Reginald Voss, holding court with a group of investors, his booming laugh a touch too loud. Victor Hammond, hovering near the refreshment table, his nervous tic betraying his discomfort. And Clara Duval, the Parisian perfumer, gliding through the crowd like a shadow in her sleek black dress, her smile both alluring and guarded. "Clara Duval," Hastings whispered. "She's like a cat, isn't she? Always watching, never quite part of the scene." "Précisément," Poirot said, his moustache twitching. "Mademoiselle Duval wears her charm like a perfume, but its notes are complex. We must learn what lies beneath." The gala was in full swing, with guests sipping champagne and bidding on rare perfumes donated by Lady Beatrice's atelier. A table displayed flacons of lune d'argent and other creations, but Étoile Mortelle was conspicuously absent, its deadly legacy too fresh. Poirot moved through the crowd, his ears attuned to snippets of conversation. He overheard Sir Reginald boasting of a new deal with a French syndicate, his words laced with bravado. Victor, meanwhile, seemed to shrink from attention, his eyes darting to Clara whenever she passed. Poirot's attention fixed on Clara as she approached Lady Beatrice, who was presenting a flacon to a wealthy dowager. "Madam," Clara said, her voice smooth as silk, "your generosity is matched only by your artistry. This gala will be the talk of London." Lady Beatrice smiled, but her eyes were wary. "Thank you, Mademoiselle Duval. I trust you're enjoying the evening." "Immensely," Clara replied, her gaze lingering on the flacon. "Your perfumes have always inspired me. Perhaps one day my atelier will rival yours." The exchange was polite, but Poirot sensed an undercurrent of rivalry. He drifted closer, noting Clara's delicate fingers brushing the table where a small bottle of lune d'argent stood. As she turned to greet another guest, her elbow caught the bottle, sending it crashing to the floor. The sharp scent of jasmine and musk filled the air, and Clara gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Oh, how clumsy of me!" she exclaimed, kneeling to gather the shards. Poirot was at her side in an instant, his gloved hand stopping her. "Mademoiselle, allow me. Broken glass is dangerous, n'est-ce pas?" His eyes locked onto hers, searching for a flicker of intent. The spill seemed accidental, but Poirot trusted accidents as little as he trusted alibis. As a servant hurried to clean the mess, Poirot examined the broken flacon. Its label was intact, but a faint residue clung to the glass, a powdery film almost invisible. He scraped a sample into a handkerchief, his movements discreet. "This scent," he murmured to Hastings, "it is lune d'argent, yet there is something off. We must have it analysed." Hastings frowned. "You think it's poisoned, like Étoile Mortelle?" "Perhaps," Poirot said, tucking the handkerchief away. "Or perhaps it is a clue to Mademoiselle Duval's true purpose here." Poirot approached Clara, who had regained her composure and was sipping champagne. "Mademoiselle Duval," he said, his tone courteous but probing, "you have a deep knowledge of perfumes, oui? Tell me, what did you think of lune d'argent before it met its unfortunate end?" Clara's smile was serene, but her eyes were guarded. A classic, Monsieur Poirot. Lady Beatrice's early triumph. It's a pity to see it wasted. And yet, Poirot continued, you seemed distracted when it fell. Were you perhaps thinking of another perfume? Or another time? Her smile faltered, but she recovered quickly. You read too much into a clumsy moment, monsieur. I was merely enjoying the gala. Poirot bowed slightly, his eyes never leaving hers. Bien sûr, mademoiselle, but the little grey cells, they notice everything. As Clara moved away, Poirot turned to Hastings. She knows more than she says, Hastings. That spill, it was no accident, I think, and Lune d'Argent, it connects to the scandal of Julian Carver, does it not? Hastings nodded, recalling Mrs. Lyle's tale. Carver's formula, stolen by Beatrice. Could Clara be linked to him? She's Parisian after all. Exactement, Poirot said. And the fleur-de-lis seal on Mrs. Grayson's letter. It points to Paris, to Clara's world. We must learn more of her atelier. Poirot's attention shifted to Lady Beatrice, who was now speaking with Dr. Philip Moreau, the chemist. Their conversation seemed strained, her gestures sharp. Poirot approached, catching the tail end of her words. Must ensure no further incidents, Philip. My reputation depends on it. Madame, Poirot interjected, this gala, it is a bold move, given recent events. But I wonder, does it also serve to distract from questions about your past? Lady Beatrice's eyes flashed. My past, Monsieur Poirot. I've built my life on transparency and art. I've nothing to hide. And yet, Poirot said softly, the name Julian Carver casts a long shadow. And now, another bottle breaks, another scent is released. Are these coincidences or echoes of that old scandal? She stiffened, her voice low. You tread on dangerous ground, monsieur. Julian is gone, and I've paid for my success in ways you cannot imagine. As she walked away, Poirot's gaze returned to the crowd, where Clara Duval was now laughing with Sir Reginald. The gala continued, its glamour a fragile mask over the manor's secrets. The spilled Lune d'Argent, the powdery residue, Clara's evasive charm, all were threads in the tapestry Poirot was weaving. Was Clara an innocent guest, or a player in a deeper game tied to Carver's disgrace? And why did the scent of the past keep resurfacing, as potent as the poison itself? Mon cher Hastings, Poirot said, his voice resolute, the mask of charm conceals much, but it cannot hide the truth forever. We are close, I think, to unmasking our alchemist. The music swelled, but Poirot's focus remained unwavering. His little grey cells chasing the scent of betrayal through the glittering night. Chapter 9. The Scented Alibi. The morning following the charity gala at Langley Manor was crisp, the autumn air carrying a hint of frost that seemed to mirror the chill of suspicion within the estate. Hercule Poirot sat in the library, his polished shoes resting on an ottoman, his hands folded over the cryptic note from the laboratory. The words, "The star falls at midnight, beware the alchemist," echoed in his mind, interwoven with the new clue from the gala, the spilled bottle of Lune d'Argent and its suspicious residue. Captain Hastings, ever diligent, sorted through a stack of telegrams and notes at the desk, his face etched with concentration. "Mon ami," Poirot said, his voice low but resonant, "the alchemist grows bolder, yet one of our suspects claims to be beyond reproach. Sir Reginald Voss insists he was in London during the preparation of Étoile Mortelle. An alibi, Hastings, is like a perfume. It may seem perfect, but its true nature is revealed only under scrutiny." Hastings looked up, his pen pausing. "Sir Reginald's been vocal about his innocence, Poirot. He's got those travel receipts and witnesses from his London meetings. Do you think he's lying?" No, not lying outright, Poirot replied, his moustache twitching. But an alibi, it can be crafted, like a scent designed to deceive. We must test its notes. Poirot had requested Sir Reginald's presence, and the portly magnate entered the library with his usual bluster, his gold watch chain glinting against his waistcoat. "Monsieur Poirot," he boomed, settling into a chair. "I hope this won't take long. I've business to attend to, and I've already told you I was in London all last week. My secretary and hotel staff can confirm it." "Oui, Monsieur Voss," Poirot said, his tone courteous but probing. "Your alibi is most fragrant, but let us examine it closely. You say you were in London from Monday to Friday, returning only for Lady Beatrice's dinner, yet the poison in Étoile Mortelle was likely introduced before the gala. Could someone in your employ have acted on your behalf?" Sir Reginald's face reddened. "Preposterous! My staff are loyal, and I've no reason to sabotage Beatrice. My empire thrives. Why risk it?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Perhaps because Lady Beatrice's Étoile Mortelle threatened to eclipse your star. You mentioned a new deal with a French syndicate at the gala. Could this deal be tied to her downfall?" Sir Reginald mopped his brow, his confidence wavering. "Business is business, Poirot. The syndicate is interested in my new line, not Beatrice's. I was at the Savoy Hotel, meeting investors. Check the register. Speak to my secretary, Miss Ellis." "Bien," Poirot said, making a mental note. "And these investors, they are in London still. Or perhaps in Paris, where the fleur-de-lis seal on Mrs. Grayson's poisoned letter originates." Sir Reginald faltered. Some are French, yes, but I was in London, I tell you." Poirot dismissed him with a nod, turning to Hastings. "His alibi is strong, but not unbreakable. We must verify these details, Hastings. A telegram to the Savoy, and a word with Miss Ellis, I think." Hastings scribbled a note. "You think he's hiding something? He's got the means to arrange a poisoning, even from afar." "Précisément," Poirot said, "but let us not rush to judgment. The little grey cells, they sense a manipulation, a scent, if you will, that does not match the bottle." Poirot's next move was to investigate the travel records Sir Reginald had so confidently offered. He dispatched a telegram to the Savoy Hotel, requesting confirmation of Sir Reginald's stay, and arranged for Hastings to telephone Miss Ellis, who was still in London. While awaiting responses, Poirot turned his attention to the residue from the spilled lune d'argent at the gala, which Dr. Evelyn Carter had promised to analyze. A messenger arrived from London with Dr. Carter's preliminary report. Poirot opened it eagerly, his eyes scanning the typed pages. "Mon Dieu," he murmured. "The residue from lune d'argent contains traces of the same toxin as Étoile Mortelle, a synthetic alkaloid, masked by the perfume's notes. But the concentration is weaker, as if it were a test or a warning." Hastings frowned. "So Clara Duval's spill wasn't an accident. She's tied to this, isn't she?" Poirot's fingers tapped his chin. "Mademoiselle Duval's charm is a mask, but this clue, it points to knowledge of the poison." Yet Sir Reginald's absence from the manor during the Gouva preparation of Étoile Mortelle complicates matters. We must see if his alibi holds. The response from the Savoy arrived within the hour, confirming Sir Reginald's stay from Monday to Thursday, with receipts and a porter's testimony. But a detail caught Poirot's eye. Sir Reginald had checked out early Friday morning, hours before the dinner. "Interessant," Poirot said. "He claims he returned only for the gala, but this gives him time to reach the manor earlier. Time enough, perhaps, to tamper with the flacon?" Miss Ellis, reached by telephone, was less forthcoming. "Sir Reginald was in meetings all week," she said, her voice clipped. "I handled his correspondence. He was at the Savoy until Friday, then took the train to Langley." "And these meetings," Poirot pressed, speaking through Hastings, "were they with French investors, perhaps from a syndicate?" A pause. "Some were French, yes. I don't know the details. Sir Reginald handles those himself." Poirot thanked her and hung up, his mind racing. "The French connection, Hastings, it grows stronger. Sir Reginald's alibi is not as airtight as he believes." "And this syndicate, could it be the same that Mr. Lyle mentioned, envious of Lady Beatrice's success?" To test his theory, Poirot summoned Clara Duval, whose Parisian ties made her a potential link. She entered, her black dress replaced by a chic grey ensemble, her smile as guarded as ever. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, "you seem determined to find fault with me." "Mademoiselle," Poirot replied, "I seek only the truth. Your spill of lune d'argent last night, it contained a trace of poison. And your atelier in Paris, it uses the fleur-de-lis seal. Clara's eyes flickered, but her voice remained steady. "As I told you, the fleur-de-lis is common in Paris. My atelier uses a different seal, a rose. And the spill was an accident. You suspect me because I am foreign?" "Non," Poirot said, his tone sharp. "I suspect because the clues point to Paris, to perfumery, to someone with motive. Did you know Julian Carver, mademoiselle?" Her composure cracked, a fleeting shadow crossing her face. "Julian? A name from the past. I heard of him in Paris, but we never met. Why do you ask?" Poirot smiled faintly. "Because the past, mademoiselle, is never truly gone. It leaves a scent, and I will follow it." As Clara left, Poirot turned to Hastings. "Her denial is too quick, her charm too practiced. Sir Reginald's alibi wavers, and Clara's secrets deepen. The alchemist's code is unraveling, Hastings, and soon we shall see its true face." The library grew quiet, the weight of the mystery pressing in. Poirot's little grey cells were closing in on the truth, but the scented alibi was only one piece of a deadly puzzle. Chapter 10. The hidden vial. The late morning light streamed through the tall windows of Langley Manor, casting a golden sheen over the oak-panelled corridors. Hercule Poirot, his black patent shoes gleaming, moved with purpose towards the west wing, where the laboratory lay. The weight of recent discoveries, the cryptic note, the Parisian seal, the tainted lune d'argent, pressed upon his mind, urging his little grey cells to seek the next piece of the puzzle. Captain Hastings followed, his notebook clutched tightly, his face a mixture of anticipation and unease after the escalating poisonings of Mrs. Price and Mrs. Grayson. "Mon ami," Poirot said, his voice low but resonant, "the alchemist's web tightens, but we are close to a vital clue. The laboratory has yielded secrets before. The note, the suspicious vial. I suspect it hides more, something that will point us to the heart of this crime." Hastings nodded, glancing down the empty corridor. "You think the poisoner left something behind? But the laboratory's been searched, hasn't it?" "Oui, but not with the eyes of Hercule Poirot," he replied, his moustache twitching. "The criminal, they are clever, but they cannot anticipate the method of my little grey cells." They reached the laboratory, its heavy door ajar, the air still thick with the mingled scents of jasmine, amber, and chemicals. Lady Beatrice had granted Poirot full access, though her reluctance was palpable, her trust in her staff shaken by the mounting evidence of sabotage. Victor Hammond, the nervous assistant, trailed behind, his tic more pronounced under Poirot's scrutiny. "Monsieur Poirot," Victor stammered. "I've checked everything. There's nothing out of place." "Rien n'est jamais tout à fait en place," Poirot murmured, his eyes scanning the room. The workbench was orderly, the shelves lined with vials and flasks, but Poirot's gaze lingered on a small, ornate cabinet in the corner. Its rosewood out of place among the utilitarian equipment. "This cabinet, Monsieur Hammond, what does it contain?" Victor hesitated, his hands twisting. "Just old records, sir. Formulas, invoices, that sort of thing. Lady Beatrice keeps it locked." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Locked, you say? Then we must open it. Secrets, they hide in the most unexpected places." Lady Beatrice, summoned to provide the key, arrived with a strained expression. "Monsieur Poirot, this is unnecessary. That cabinet holds only paperwork, nothing relevant to your investigation." "Madame," Poirot said, his tone courteous but firm, "in a case of poison, everything is relevant. The key, if you please." With a sigh, Lady Beatrice produced a small brass key and unlocked the cabinet. Inside were stacks of ledgers, but Poirot's attention was drawn to a false panel at the back, its edges slightly misaligned. With a deft movement, he pressed it, revealing a hidden compartment. Nestled within was a small glass vial, its amber liquid identical to Étoile Mortelle, but its label bore a single word in a shaky hand: toxique. "Mon Dieu," Poirot whispered, holding the vial to the light. "The hidden vial, Hastings! This is no prototype. It is the poison itself." Lady Beatrice gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "That's impossible! I've never seen that before. How could it be here?" Victor's face drained of colour, his tic now a frantic twitch. I don't know, sir. I swear I never touched that cabinet." Poirot's gaze was unrelenting. "Yet someone did, Monsieur Hammond. Someone with intimate knowledge of this laboratory and this manor." He turned to Lady Beatrice. "Who else has access to this cabinet?" "Only me," she said, her voice trembling, "and Mrs. Grayson for cleaning. No one else." "Mrs. Grayson," Poirot repeated, his mind racing. "Who lies in hospital poisoned by a letter? This is no coincidence, madame." Hastings, clutching the vial, whispered, "Poirot, this could be the murder weapon. Should we send it to Dr. Carter?" "Oui," Poirot said, carefully wrapping the vial in a handkerchief. "But first, we must ensure its safety. The alchemist is watching, and they will not be pleased that we have found their secret." Poirot sent a servant to deliver the vial to Dr. Evelyn Carter, with strict instructions for immediate analysis. While awaiting her response, he examined the cabinet's compartment, noting a faint smudge of wax on the inner edge, red with a trace of the fleur-de-lis pattern. "The Parisian seal again," he murmured. "This links to the poisoned letter. To Clara Duval's world, perhaps." Returning to the library, Poirot received Dr. Carter's preliminary findings by telegram. The vial's contents matched the toxin in Étoile Mortelle and the lune d'argent residue, a synthetic alkaloid, deadly when inhaled, crafted with expert precision. "This confirms it, Hastings," Poirot said. "The poison was not a mistake, but a masterpiece of malice, hidden in plain sight." He summoned Clara Duval, whose Parisian ties and evasive charm made her a prime suspect. She entered, her grey dress understated, yet elegant, her smile a careful mask. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, "you seem determined to make me the villain. What have I done now?" "Mademoiselle," Poirot replied, holding up the wax-smudged handkerchief. "This wax, it matches the seal on Mrs. Grayson's letter. And now, a vial of poison is found in a cabinet only Lady Beatrice and her housekeeper could access. Yet you, with your knowledge of perfumery, could you not have slipped into the laboratory?" Clara's eyes flickered, but her voice remained steady. You flatter my cunning, monsieur. I'm a guest, not a thief, and I've no key to that cabinet. Perhaps not, Poirot said, but the alchemist is clever, and keys can be borrowed or copied. Tell me, mademoiselle, did you ever work with Julian Carver in Paris? Her composure wavered, a shadow crossing her face. I told you, I know of him only by reputation. Why do you keep circling back to him? Because, Poirot said softly, his name is a scent that lingers in this case, as potent as the poison itself. As Clara left, Poirot turned to Hastings. The hidden vial narrows our suspects, Hastings. Lady Beatrice, Victor, Mrs. Grayson, and perhaps Clara, with her Parisian connections. But the wax, the fleur-de-lis, it points to a mind that moves between worlds. Hastings frowned. What about Sir Reginald? His alibi's shaky, and he's got ties to French investors. Oui, Poirot said, but the laboratory is the heart of this crime, and Sir Reginald was not here. The alchemist is someone close, someone who knows the manor's secrets. As the manor settled into an uneasy quiet, Poirot stood by the library window, gazing at the frost-kissed gardens. The hidden vial was a breakthrough, but it raised new questions. Was Mrs. Grayson poisoned to silence her knowledge of the cabinet? Did Clara's charm conceal a deeper involvement? And where was Julian Carver, whose shadow loomed ever larger? Mon cher Hastings, Poirot said, his voice resolute, the alchemist's game grows desperate, but the little grey cells, they are closing in. The hidden vial is our guide, and soon it will lead us to the truth. The fire crackled, its warmth a stark contrast to the chilling mystery unfolding within Langley Manor's walls. Chapter 11, The Confession's Deception. The late afternoon light cast long shadows across the library of Langley Manor, where Hercule Poirot sat in a high-backed chair, his gloved hands folded over the cryptic note from the laboratory. The discovery of the hidden vial of poisoned étoile mortelle had tightened the noose around the suspects, but the mystery remained elusive. Its threads tangled with motives and secrets. Captain Hastings, seated at the desk, sorted through his notes, his brow furrowed with the weight of the case. The poisonings of Mrs. Price and Mrs. Grayson, the Parisian seal, and the shadow of Julian Carver loomed large. But Poirot's little grey cells were now focused on a new twist in the tale. Mon ami, Poirot said, his voice a quiet murmur. The alchemist plays a clever game, hiding behind masks of charm and alibis. But a confession, Hastings. It is like a perfume that seems sweet but may conceal a bitter note. We must be wary. Hastings looked up, puzzled. A confession? Who's confessed, Poirot? We've not had a peep from anyone admitting guilt. Before Poirot could reply, a sharp knock interrupted them. The butler ushered in Victor Hammond, the nervous assistant, whose pallor was more pronounced than ever. His ink-stained fingers trembled, and his tic twitched furiously as he stood before Poirot, his eyes darting to the floor. "Monsieur Poirot," he stammered, I must speak with you alone." Poirot raised a hand, his gaze piercing. "Monsieur Hammond, Captain Hastings is my confidant. Speak freely, for the truth, it cannot hide forever." Victor swallowed, his voice barely above a whisper. "It was me, sir. I tampered with the étoile mortelle. But I swear, it was meant to be a prank. A way to embarrass Lady Beatrice, not to harm anyone." The room fell silent, the confession hanging like a sudden fog. Hastings's pen froze, and Poirot's moustache twitched, his eyes narrowing. "A prank, you say?" Poirot's tone was deceptively mild. "To poison a perfume, to risk lives, this is no jest, Monsieur Hammond. Explain yourself." Victor's hands twisted, his words tumbling out. "I was angry, sir. Lady Beatrice treats me like a servant, not an apprentice. I wanted to taint her precious perfume, just a chemical to make it smell foul, to ruin her unveiling. I used a compound from the laboratory, something I thought was harmless. I didn't know it would poison anyone." Poirot leaned forward, his eyes like twin lanterns. "This compound, what was it, and how did you obtain it?" Victor hesitated, his tic betraying his unease. "It was a vial from the storage room. I found it in that crate from Paris, the one with Julian Carver's notebook. I thought it was just a scent-altering agent. I mixed a small amount into the Étoile Mortelle flacon before the dinner." Hastings gasped. "You poisoned Mrs. Price and Mrs. Grayson for a prank? Victor, that's madness." "No, Hastings," Poirot interjected, his voice sharp. "Madness. It is too convenient. Monsieur Hammond, your confession, it is a curious thing. The vial we found in the cabinet, labelled toxique, it matches the poison exactly. Yet you claim ignorance of its true nature. And this crate from Paris, did you not find it suspicious, bearing Carver's name?" Victor's eyes widened, his voice cracking. "I didn't think. I just wanted to humiliate her, to show I could outsmart her. I swear, I didn't mean to hurt anyone." Poirot's fingers tapped his chin, his mind racing. "And the letter to Mrs. Grayson, with its fleur-de-lis seal, did you send that too?" "No," Victor cried, his hands raised. "I know nothing about the letter. I only touched the flacon for the dinner." Poirot rose, pacing slowly. "Très intéressant. Your confession, it explains the first poisoning, but not the second. And the notebook of Julian Carver, why not mention it before? You are protecting someone, Monsieur Hammond, or you are a pawn in a larger game." Victor's shoulders slumped, his voice barely audible. "I'm telling the truth, sir. I've no reason to lie." Poirot's gaze was unrelenting. "The truth, mon ami, is like a rose. It has thorns. We shall see if your story holds." He dismissed Victor, who left with a haunted look, and turned to Hastings. "What do you make of this, Hastings? A confession so sudden, so incomplete, it smells of deception." Hastings frowned, flipping through his notes. "He's nervous enough to be guilty, but his story doesn't add up. Why confess to the first poisoning, but not the letter? And that crate from Paris, it's too neat, tying back to Carver." "Précisément," Poirot said, his eyes gleaming. "Victor is a scapegoat, I think, or a shield for the true alchemist. His access to the laboratory makes him convenient, but his ignorance of the toxin's nature, it does not fit. We must test his story." Poirot summoned Lady Beatrice, whose regal demeanour was fraying under the strain of the investigation. She entered, her sapphire eyes wary. "Monsieur Poirot, what now? I hear Victor has been speaking nonsense." "Madame," Poirot said, "he claims to have tampered with Étoile Mortelle as a prank, using a compound from a Parisian crate. What do you know of this crate, and of Julian Carver's notebook within it?" Lady Beatrice's face paled, but her voice remained steady. "The crate contained essences, as Victor said. I didn't see any notebook. As for Julian, I've told you, he's a ghost from my past. If Victor did this, he acted alone." Poirot's moustache twitched. "Alone, madam? Yet the poison was expertly crafted, and the letter to Mrs. Grayson suggests a broader plot. Could someone, perhaps Carver himself, have used Victor as a tool?" "I don't know," she said, her hands clenching. "Victor is loyal, if foolish. I can't believe he'd poison anyone." Poirot dismissed her, his mind churning. He sent a telegram to Dr. Evelyn Carter, requesting confirmation of the toxin's complexity. Could an amateur like Victor have synthesized it? The response arrived swiftly. The alkaloid required advanced chemical knowledge far beyond Victor's skills. Mon Dieu, Poirot murmured. Victor's confession is a red herring, designed to mislead us. He turned to Hastings. The alchemist is clever, Hastings. They use Victor's guilt to divert suspicion, but the true culprit remains hidden. The Parisian crate, the fleur-de-lis seal, the notebook, these point to someone with deep ties to Lady Beatrice's past, perhaps Clara Duval, or an unseen ally of Julian Carver. Hastings nodded, his eyes wide. So Victor's protecting someone, or he's been manipulated? Both, perhaps, Poirot said. We must watch him closely, for he may lead us to the alchemist. As the manor settled into a tense evening, Poirot stood by the library window, the weight of the confession heavy on his mind. Victor's words were a deception, but they had revealed a truth. The poisoner was desperate, their carefully laid plans unravelling. The little grey cells were closing in, and Poirot knew the next clue would bring him face to face with the alchemist's true identity. Chapter 12. The Final Scent. The drawing-room of Langley Manor was bathed in the soft glow of candlelight, its heavy velvet drapes drawn against the chill of the autumn evening. Hercule Poirot stood at the centre, his compact figure commanding the attention of the assembled suspects. The air was thick with anticipation, the scent of fear mingling with the faint traces of jasmine and amber that lingered from the gala. Captain Hastings stood by the fireplace, his notebook closed, his eyes fixed on Poirot, who was about to unveil the truth behind the poisoned perfume. The suspects, Lady Beatrice Langley, Sir Reginald Voss, Clara Duval, Victor Hammond, Dr. Philip Moreau, and Mr. and Mrs. Lyle, sat in a tense semicircle, their faces a gallery of apprehension and defiance. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his voice clear and resonant, "we have gathered to unmask the alchemist, the one who turned the art of perfume into a weapon of poison. 2 victims, Mrs. Eleanor Price and Mrs. Grayson, have suffered, and the truth, it has been hidden behind a veil of deception. But the little grey cells of Hercule Poirot, they see through the mist. Lady Beatrice, her sapphire gown stark against her pale face, spoke first. Monsieur Poirot, this is intolerable. You've kept us here like prisoners. Who is this alchemist you keep speaking of?" Poirot's moustache twitched, his eyes gleaming. "Patience, madame. The alchemist is among us, and their identity is woven into the clues we have uncovered. A cryptic note, a Parisian seal, a hidden vial, and a confession that was but a shadow of the truth." He paced slowly, his hands clasped behind his back. "Let us reconstruct the events. The poisonings began with Étoile Mortelle, unveiled at Lady Beatrice's dinner. Mrs. Price collapsed, a victim of a synthetic alkaloid, expertly crafted to kill when inhaled. Then, Mrs. Grayson, the housekeeper, was poisoned by a scented letter, bearing a fleur-de-lis seal. A vial of poison was found in a hidden cabinet, and a notebook, signed by Julian Carver, hinted at a past scandal. And then, Monsieur Victor Hammond confessed to tampering with the perfume, but his confession, it was a lie. Victor, his tic twitching furiously, protested. "I told you, sir, it was a prank. I didn't know the compound was deadly." Poirot raised a hand, silencing him. "Non, Monsieur Hammond. Your confession was a shield meant to protect another. The toxin required skill beyond your knowledge, as confirmed by Dr. Carter. You were manipulated, a pawn in the alchemist's game." He turned to the group, his gaze sweeping over each face. "The clues point to a motive rooted in the past. A scandal involving Lune d'Argent, Lady Beatrice's first triumph, and Julian Carver, her disgraced partner. Mrs. Price, Carver's cousin, lost her fortune and harboured a grudge. The note, The star falls at midnight, beware the alchemist, and the Parisian crate suggested a connection to France. But who among you could craft such a poison and orchestrate this plot? Sir Reginald Voss shifted uncomfortably, his florid face glistening. I was in London, Poirot. My alibi's solid. You checked it yourself. Oui, Poirot said. But your early departure from the Savoy gave you time to reach the manor. And your French syndicate. Did they not resent Lady Beatrice's success? Yet your bluster. It is not the mark of the alchemist. Poirot's eyes settled on Clara Duval, whose smile was now a thin line. Mademoiselle Duval, you are a perfumer from Paris, where the fleur-de-lis seal is common. The spilled lune d'argent at the gala contained traces of the same toxin. And your knowledge of Julian Carver, though you deny meeting him, raises questions. Clara's voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed unease. You accuse me because I'm Parisian? I've no motive, Monsieur Poirot. I came to admire, not to destroy. Perhaps, Poirot said, but the alchemist is not you, mademoiselle. Your charm conceals secrets, but not murder. He turned to Lady Beatrice, whose hands were clasped tightly. Madame, your past with Julian Carver is the key. You claimed he vanished, but the notebook in the Parisian crate bore his signature. And the hidden vial, it was in your cabinet, accessible only to you and Mrs. Grayson. Lady Beatrice's eyes flashed. You dare accuse me? I'm the victim here. My reputation ruined. No, Poirot said softly. The victim, madame, was meant to be another. Let us consider Dr. Philip Moreau, the chemist with the skill to create the poison. Moreau, his spectacles glinting, stood abruptly. This is absurd. I'm a scientist, not a murderer. My formulas were perfect. Perfect, Poirot echoed, but altered by another. The alchemist is not you, docteur, but one who used your expertise. Poirot paused, his gaze settling on Mr. Lyle, the journalist, who had remained quiet, his sharp nose twitching. Monsieur Lyle, you have been a shadow in this case, listening, watching. You spoke of a Parisian syndicate, of Lady Beatrice's rare ingredient. But you knew more, oui? You are Julian Carver. The room gasped, and Mr. Lyle's face drained of colour. Preposterous, he sputtered. I'm a journalist, not some disgraced perfumer. Poirot's voice was relentless. Non, monsieur. Your knowledge of the perfume trade, your presence at every key moment, and your wife's tale of the Lune d'Argent scandal, it was too precise. You returned to England, disguised as Lyle, to exact revenge. The notebook was yours, left to taunt Lady Beatrice. The vial, hidden in her cabinet, was your work. You poisoned Étoile Mortelle to ruin her. And Mrs. Price, your cousin, was an unintended victim, a tragic mistake. Mrs. Grayson saw you in the laboratory, so you silenced her with the letter. Lyle's eyes darted, but Poirot continued. Victor's confession was your doing. You planted the idea, knowing his loyalty would make him confess to protect Lady Beatrice. The fleur-de-lis seal, your Parisian past, it all fits. You are the alchemist, Monsieur Carver. Lyle Carver slumped, his facade crumbling. She stole everything, he whispered. My formula, my future. I wanted her to suffer, but not like this. The room fell silent, the weight of the revelation settling over them. Lady Beatrice covered her face, and Clara's eyes softened, as if pitying the broken man. Poirot's voice was gentle but firm. The little grey cells, they do not forgive, but they understand. You will face justice, monsieur. As Carver was led away by the butler to await the police, Poirot turned to Hastings. Mon cher, the final scent is revealed, not of jasmine or amber, but of vengeance. The alchemist's plot is undone. The candles flickered, casting their light on a case now closed. as Poirot's brilliance illuminated the darkest corners of Langley Manor. Chapter 13. The case concluded. The morning sun bathed Langley Manor in a serene glow, its golden rays filtering through the drawing-room's tall windows, as if to dispel the shadows of the past day's turmoil. Hercule Poirot stood by the fireplace, his immaculate suit a stark contrast to the weariness that lingered in the air. The revelation of Julian Carver, disguised as Mr. Lyle, had brought the mystery of the poisoned perfume to a close, but the echoes of betrayal still resonated. Captain Hastings sat on a velvet settee, his notebook finally at rest, his honest face reflecting a mix of relief and curiosity as he awaited Poirot's final reflections. "Mon ami," Poirot said, his voice soft yet resonant, "the case of the poisoned perfume is concluded, but the little grey cells, they do not rest until every thread is neatly tied. We must review the clues, the motives, and the human heart that drove this tragedy." Hastings leaned forward, his eyes bright. "You were brilliant, Poirot, unmasking Carver like that. But I confess, I missed some of the clues. How did you know it was him?" Poirot's moustache twitched, a faint smile playing on his lips. "The clues, Hastings, they were like notes in a perfume, each subtle, but together they formed a symphony. Let us revisit them, n'est-ce pas?" He paced slowly, his hands clasped behind his back. First, the poisonings, Mrs. Price and Mrs. Grayson, struck by a synthetic alkaloid in Étoile Mortelle and a scented letter. The toxin required expertise, pointing to someone with chemical knowledge. Dr. Moreau was a candidate, but his precision lacked motive. Victor Hammond's confession, it was too convenient, a red herring to shield the true culprit. Poirot paused, his eyes distant. The cryptic note, "The star falls at midnight. Beware the alchemist," was our first hint. The star was Étoile Mortelle, and the alchemist a perfumer with a grudge. The singed edges suggested urgency, a warning left in haste. Then the Parisian crate, bearing Julian Carver's notebook, and the fleur-de-lis seal on Mrs. Grayson's letter. These pointed to a French connection, to a past scandal. Lady Beatrice entered, her sapphire eyes softened by gratitude but shadowed by guilt. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice low, "I owe you my life, my reputation." "But Julian, I never imagined he'd return, let alone with such hatred." "Madam," Poirot replied, bowing slightly, "the heart, when wounded, can fester for years. Julian Carver, your former partner, lost everything when you claimed Lune d'Argent. His revenge was to ruin your triumph with Étoile Mortelle, but his plan misfired. Harming his own cousin, Mrs. Price Hastings frowned, flipping through his memory. But the spilled Lune d'Argent at the gala, how did that fit? Poirot's eyes gleamed. A subtle clue, Hastings. The residue contained the same toxin, a test run by Carver to ensure his poison worked. Clara Duval's accident was no accident. She was his unwitting accomplice, distracted by his charm, unaware of his true identity as Mr. Lyle. Her Parisian ties made her a suspect, but her role was peripheral. Lady Beatrice sank into a chair, her hands trembling. I should have seen it. Julian sent that crate, didn't he? The notebook, the essences, it was his way back into my life. Oui, Poirot said. He posed as a journalist to infiltrate the manor, planting the vial in your cabinet, tampering with the flacon. Mrs. Grayson, with her access to the laboratory, saw him and became a threat, so he poisoned her letter. Victor, loyal but naive, confessed to protect you, believing his tampering was the cause. Hastings shook his head. Poor Victor. He was so shaken thinking he'd killed someone. Précisément, Poirot said. Carver manipulated his guilt, knowing Victor's confession would delay us. But the little grey cells, they saw through the deception, the toxin's complexity, the Parisian seal, Carver's intimate knowledge of your past, madame. These were his signature. Poirot turned to Lady Beatrice. One question remains, madame. The debt to Mrs. Price, why did you not settle it? Her eyes dropped, her voice barely a whisper. Pride, Monsieur Poirot. Eleanor invested in my early work, but when Julian and I parted, she blamed me. I offered repayment, but she wanted an apology, an admission of theft. I couldn't. My reputation was all I had. Poirot nodded, his expression softening. The heart, it is a fragile thing, but justice is served and your name is cleared. As Lady Beatrice left to oversee the manor's restoration, Poirot addressed the remaining guests, summoned for a final briefing. Sir Reginald Voss, his bluster subdued, offered a grudging nod. You've saved us all, Poirot. I'll not forget it. Clara Duval, her charm tempered by humility, added, I was foolish perhaps to trust Mr. Lyle, but I swear I knew nothing of his plans. Mademoiselle, Poirot said, your innocence is clear, but beware the masks others wear. Victor, still pale, murmured his thanks, and Dr. Moreau, ever precise, promised to safeguard future formulas. The Lyles, or rather Mrs. Lyle, now alone, wept quietly, mourning her husband's fall. As the guests dispersed, Poirot stood by the window, gazing at the gardens. Hastings, he said, this case, it reminds us of the dangers of obsession. Julian Carver's vengeance consumed him, turning his art into a weapon. The perfume, it should uplift the soul, not destroy it. Hastings nodded, closing his notebook. You saw what we all missed, Poirot. That notebook, the wax smudge, even Clara's spill, how do you do it? Poirot smiled, his eyes twinkling. The little grey cells, mon cher, they follow the scent of truth, no matter how faint. Every clue, every glance, it tells a story. And I, Hercule Poirot, listen. The manor grew quiet, its elegance restored, but forever marked by the case. Poirot gathered his coat, preparing to depart for London, where new mysteries awaited. As he stepped into the crisp morning, the scent of autumn leaves filled the air, a reminder of life's fleeting beauty. The case is concluded, he murmured, but the human heart, it will always hold secrets. Hastings, walking beside him, grinned. Until the next adventure, eh, Poirot? Oui, mon ami, Poirot replied, his moustache curving upward. The world, it is never short of puzzles for Hercule Poirot. As their car pulled away from Langley Manor, the sun rose higher, casting light on a world where justice, for now, had prevailed, and the deadly scent of Étoile Mortelle was but a memory.